Today is all about those other things we carry around in our acoustic case. And this podcast answers the question, what are the most helpful accessories to get you going on acoustic guitar? So stay tuned. Hello and welcome, friends, to episode 172 of the Play Guitar Podcast. I'm Lee and this is Scott, and this is the podcast that's determined to make you a better guitar player. No matter if you're just starting out or you've been playing for years, this is the show that will help you become the guitarist that you always wanted to be. If you're new here, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast and check out the description for all of the links from the show. And this episode is brought to you by Play Guitar Academy, where you learn the right skills at the right time in the right order to put guitar frustration in your past. Getting your guitar is only half the fun. Once you're ready to go, you quickly realize you're going to need some other things. And the business of guitar accessories, it's enormous. It's huge. There's thousands of options, but don't get intimidated. Picking guitar accessories will be one of the most fun and inexpensive decisions a guitar player makes. Hang out with us today as we make those decisions even easier for you by pointing out the essential accessories, highly recommended accessories, and ones that are just very useful and fun. And hang around to the end. I think we're going to share some cool stuff with you too. So let's go ahead and get started here. First off, hello, Scott. How are you doing today?
I am fine, Lee. And how are you?
I am full of accessories here. I have my fidget spinner, which is important, and I'm ready to go. I see Ozzy in the background there with you.
I have Ozzy. I'm backwards. I don't know which side.
There you go.
I don't know which side he's on, so I covered it.
Let's see here. We are going to split this up into 3 sections, and we're going to talk about kind of what's recommended. And then we're going to talk about what we actually use. Scott will be much more in depth with this. I'm of the get it and use it and be done with it. But he does a little bit more experimenting with the acoustic guitar accessories than I do. So we're going to lean heavily on Scott's opinions today. That's right. We're going to start with the big 3. The big 3. What do you think the big 3 things you need to really get your acoustic guitar playing going? Guitar picks, a tuner, and guitar strings. We could do a whole show on just these 3. We've got more for you than just these 3, though. So let's start with picks. And Scott, I'm going to ask you right off the bat, what's the best pick for playing acoustic guitar?
Well, that's really an easy question. There's no best pick. I think the best pick is the best pick for you. And the only way to really find that out is to get out there and experiment with picks. I can tell you what the best is for me. When I use a flat pick, I use a Dunlop, and it's a 60 millimeter pick. It's very thin. And most players, especially electric players, don't like a real thin pick. But for me, it works. I choke up on it sometimes to make it a little stiffer, and then I can back off of it, and it makes it a little thinner for strumming and things. But I don't really use a pick a lot, but if I have to, it's the Dunlop. And I would suggest getting out there and really, there are a plethora of picks. That's the truth.
That was wonderful. A plethora of picks.
There is a plethora of plectrums.
That's right. Yes. So acoustic with picks. Here's the 3 I use. Okay. So I've got, this is just my regular middle of the road pick. If Scott called me up and said, I need a lead guitar player to play with me tonight, come on out. This is what I would take. This is just the blue, same one I use for electric guitar. I've put a little, I took a drill to it so it doesn't, fly off and go across the room there. But if I'm recording, I don't use this. I never use this pick. This is just for me to get through a gig. I'm using in the same vein as Scott, I'm using a Dunlop. What is this? Oh, it's a 0.38 millimeter, very thin. So it's like paper almost. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. And I also use a Jazz 3, a very heavy Jazz 3 pick. This is for strumming when I'm recording. The thin pick and the thick pick is for playing single notes for me. And it's a sharp sound. The Jazz 3 has a very pointy end to it that helps with that. Now, Scott likes the thinner pick. Would you say yours was a 0.6?
A 0.6, and it's about twice the thickness of yours.
Right. And if any of you start experimenting with recording and hear what a heavy pick does to a strummed acoustic guitar, it's not always the nicest thing. It tends to there's some tuning issues about it.
Sure.
And it does not resonate well. When the strings are all going so strongly, it's like the overtones fight each other. Try using a thin pick when you're strumming. It'll feel weird at first, especially for electric guitar players. But if you're strumming acoustic guitars with a very thin pick, it has, for the lack of a better word, a thunk to it. It has an evenness where the lows, the mids, and the highs all come out completely even. None of them are overpowering each other, and it really allows the guitar to shine a little bit. This one was my wife's pick, and she liked to play, just finger style all the time. And when we were playing out, she wanted to. It had to have a pick. She was like, well, what's the thinnest one that we can get? And I was like, come on, you don't want to do that. And I was blown away. I recorded with it and it sounded fantastic. So I guess for Scott, with you with the 60 millimeter pick, it's kind of like that's your kind of middle of the road. You get a good single note sound or arpeggiated sound plus the strumming as well. So.
And does Lisa know that you took her pick?
Oh, I have a whole. I bought about 40 of them. So
Here, I wanted to also show this pick, and this is called the Black Mountain. And unlike a lot of thumb picks, I don't know if you can see it here. It's got a spring right back here, and it fits on the thumb very well, and it allows you. I don't use it a lot, but I'm just trying it out. It allows you to strum, and then you can grab it like this and do leads or individual strings and strum as well. And it works very, very well. It's called a Black Mountain. It's a good little thing to know.
Yeah, so let's do that. Let's talk about thumb picks a little bit here. So any kind of finger style, if you're just playing and you want to get a little bit of volume or you want to have more of like a bluegrass sound, like a dobro sound, you start to or the Tommy Emmanuel style, that the Chet Atkins, it's all based on a thumb pick, right? Keeping those low notes strong. When you use just your thumb, you tend to use the side of it, maybe a little bit of your fingernail, and it's a softer sound. If you need something that's a little bit stronger. So here's you've got your steel thumb picks here. Let's see here, more of what a dobro player would play. Here's the the Dunlop plastic ones, the acrylic ones. I forget the name of this one. This is a bunch of bluegrass players play. Let's see if you can see that. And then you've got the ones that are a pick that is attached. And one of the problems with a thumb pick is, the biggest problem is comfort, right? Just picking up any old thumb pick and putting it on, it feels fine right at first. And after about 2-3 minutes, losing the feeling on the end of your thumb, and digging into you, it's very tough to find a thumb pick that is perfectly matched for your thumb. So that's where the spring loaded comes in there. How about that? That's awesome. I use this this one here because I don't like to have a really long see how long this pick goes down from where your thumb is. I've actually filed this one down. You can do a lot of different things with thumb picks and get a lot of cool sounds, cool ideas with them too. But that is a great recommendation, Scott. How much are those going for, do you think?
I don't remember what Travis told me on this Black Mountain. It was expensive, I believe. But also on finger picks and thumb picks, if you're out there trying to explore finger and thumb picks, there's a pick. I just went to look and see. I have some somewhere, but I couldn't put my hands on them. But they're called Alaska picks. And they've built into the pick where you can put your fingernail into the pick, and the pick kind of feels as if it's become your fingernail. And then, like Lee was saying on that thumb pick, then you file each one of these down.
Mm-hmm.
My fingers, I have nails that I have put on at a salon, so those are my finger picks. But the Alaska picks are very similar to that, and you can file them however you like on your thumb or your fingers, and they fit very well and feel like your own fingernails.
Yeah, so we're talking about finger picks now, not the thumb
And
pick.
thumb.
For
They make a thumb
do it for
pick.
thumbs too.
And
Okay, yeah, I've got some. These are the Pro picks here. You've all seen these. These are the steel finger picks there. So, and this is the classic noob thing where they'll put the finger pick on like it's your fingernail, and then you'll discover very quickly that that's the incorrect way of playing it. So finger picks go on like this, where it kind of makes a slope around the pad of your finger, so that you're pulling on the finger instead of using it like a fingernail and scooping it, and then it goes straight across there. Yeah, so finger picks, that's usually you'll see that more with like a dobro player. Usually for a guitar, acoustic guitar, you just at the most you'll get a thumb pick, maybe the Alaska picks, those kind of things. But the metal finger picks, usually that's going to be for a dobro player. They do have the Dunlops. I've used these before, which is just a plastic. Same idea with those too, and you get a neat sound, a nice bright sound, a nice even sound, and if that's your style, there's and Bob's your uncle for that one. But
and those work very well,
yeah,
as long as you're picking up like this. But when you flail down like that,
mm-hmm.
curved up picks are going to do the same thing as if you put them on backwards.
Right.
And so that's why I could never use those, because I have these nails where I can flail down on the strings as well as pull up on the strings.
And if you're a beginner, complete beginner, and you're just wondering, well, what picks do I use? Right? I would suggest something like this, a variety pack. So Dunlop makes, this is more for electric, and one's more for acoustic, and that deals with the thickness. The acoustics are going to be a little bit bigger and thinner there, and it gives you several different sizes, several different types of pick, and the best way to, like, as the very first thing Scooter said, was to experiment with this. There's no one guitar pick that's perfect for everybody, and you will get to know which one works pretty quickly. It doesn't take too long to find out. And I have a recommended gear page, which should be, I don't think I have it. It'll be on the show notes page there if you would like to check that. We'll go through that as we go through here. Okay, so that's picks. Let's move on to tuners. What kind of a tuner do you use, Scooter?
Well, again, I have a plethora of tuners over the years. They're the digital tuners, clip-on tuners. I don't know that there's a bad one. There may be, but the cheap one is like the Snark, and they're everywhere. And there's another one, and because I'm a dealer of sorts, I get the Diodario tuners, the little clip on, and it spins around, and it has a little attachment that if you have a Diodario capo, it'll hook to the capo, little cute things like that. But there's a million tuners, but out of them all, when I'm playing live, I have a dedicated tuner on my board, my footboard. And then when I'm at home, I use my phone. I have a Peterson app, the strobe app. I use that in my workshop for setting up intonation and everything. So it's a great tuner.
Yeah, another one that's really good is the TC, the Polytune. It's not a strobe tuner, but it has a strobe-like kind of, which gets you pretty close to that there. But the old standard is the Boss, the TU. I guess it's the TU. What are they up to now? TU 20? I don't know. I have the TU.
Not up to here.
I've got the TU2 on my board, but I know they have a TU3. I haven't checked. Probably going up farther. But tuner, super important. Unless you have perfect pitch, we all have what's called relative pitch. If we have one note, we can match other notes to it, and that's using the old tuning fork kind of thing. That is a skill that takes some time, and if you want to get up and playing right away, tuners are the way to go. You can find them. They actually have them packaged with a metronome. A lot of floorboards, if you buy these modeling floorboards with your electric, they'll have them in there too. So always should have a tuner, but the Snark is usually you can't beat it. You can't, for the money, you can't beat it. They work.
And the blue ones you can see a lot better than Lee's black one.
Yeah.
Up against the black shirt. But see how good you can see this? You can see it really good.
That's right. And do they all have a metronome in them too? I know they have different functions. I never really explore all the different functions in the Snarks, but
they never have either.
But
I didn't know they did anything but tune.
Okay, so let's move into the big one, strings, guitar strings. Most likely, when you get your first guitar, you're not going to stay with the strings that are on it. You're probably going to at first try to make the best of it, and then you're going to experiment with other things. With acoustic guitar, there's the actual makeup of the strings, to me, is a lot more important than when you play electric guitar. The different style. I was going to ask Scott to go through the different styles of guitar strings, not the brands, but the different styles that you'll find and what they do for you. What you notice in your playing when you use a different type of string.
I guess the most common, or what used to be the most common before the coated strings and things like that, was the 80-20 bronze. It's a very bright string. It's my choice of string. Then they make a phosphor bronze that is a little more bronze, about 90. It's about a 10% height, and it's a little softer sound. It takes that edge off, a little of the edge, not a lot. It'll last. It's supposed to last a little bit longer. I have no idea how long strings last. I change so frequently, it's scary. And people think I'm insane, but I change. If I'm playing a gig, if Lee and I were playing tonight and tomorrow night, I would have new strings on tonight, and I would have new strings on tomorrow night. So I buy 80-20s, the cheapest ones I can find, because they're not going to be around a long time. Then you go on to, if you play acoustic and you're not playing out and you're not hooking up to electronics, silk and steel are wonderful for your hands. They have a soft sound, a soft feel. It's basically a steel core that's wrapped in a soft cotton-like silky fabric, and then a soft silver wire on the outside. and they're very comfortable. They sound very folky and warm. They won't hurt your fingers. Of all the steel strings, they're the best on your fingers. And then, of course, you can go to nickel strings. I think the Martin Retros, Lee and I were talking about earlier, are a nickel wound string that they're excellent. I think they sound absolutely great. They are a little on the pricey side, so as much as I change strings, they're not in my box. And then there's nylon strings, naturally nylon, and I mean it goes on from there. But basically, that's it.
I'm in the same boat. If I play out, I ruin a set of strings in a night, and I don't know it's the sweat or it's whatever it is, but they just sound terrible. But at home, I can keep the same set of strings for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
Even if they're not the coated. So a lot of people like the Elixir strings, and then what's the Diodario has I think they all have a type of coated string. It started with Gore company started that out, and people ask, well, what is the coated strings? Are they all the plain strings are not coated. Your high E and your B string are just plain strings. It's the wound strings that have a coating on them. They're dipped in a certain something, and they last for a very long time. It has a sound to it. You can definitely hear when you're playing a coated string. Maybe not at first, you wouldn't notice it, but after a while, they do sound different, and that could be your sound. There's no good or bad in any of this. Right. What works for me. I was our mutual friend Travis told me about these retros, and for lead guitar playing on acoustic, I love them. I just tried them out and stuck with them because they're not super bright, but they stay even for a long time. They don't get super dull after a while too. So they last a while, and they say it has a vintage sound. It just to me, it has an even sound to it. It's not like they're neat. But if I was playing all the time, I go exactly to what Scott was saying, where I'm not going to pay all that. If I'm just playing one gig on one set of strings, I'm not going to pay that much money for it. And I've tried the what was it, Just Strings? You can get them in bulk, or you pay a certain amount and then you get 12 packs in the mail or something. I've gone through a lot of them. I do remember the Darko strings. That's what you say you use now, which are really nice strings and not very expensive too. So those are nice.
Also strings very much like picks. I can tell you what I think is best, and I don't change strings every night because I ruin them. I could probably play them for 5 gigs, but I have this paranoia that I'm going to break a string.
Okay.
So I just put on a fresh set. That's the only reason. But there's no right string. I cannot stand coated strings. I think they sound awful. But that's my ears, and that doesn't mean they're not the right string for you. So it's what you like, and you have to try them. You just have to try.
I've heard players I thought sounded fantastic, and then found out later they were using coated strings. So it just depends on how it works with your playing. Right. Okay, so that's the big 3. We're going to take a little break right here. We're going to go into the chat, say hi to everyone real quick. Let's see here. Dean is here. Hi, Dean. How are you doing? Jim's here. Great to see you, Jim. David. Mark is here. Hi, Mark, all the way from North Carolina. All right. That's good. Let's see. Evan's here. Let's see here. Matthew is here. Coke is here. Matthew says, would you recommend a thumb pick for someone who prefers to lose their picks in the sound hole? I would recommend one of these. A feedback buster and then you won't be losing your picks and your sound holes in it. No, I'm just joking, of course. Yeah, it happens. I'm really good. One of my talents, I have very few talents. And
Getting the picks out of a guitar with the flip.
That's right. So I did when I was in Forsyth, I had the group guitar class, and they would time me. The pick would go in the acoustic guitar. I'm like, all right, here we go. Get your watches out, right? And 10 seconds, and I get that pick out. I'm good at it. But let's see here. Mark says, love Alaska picks. There are some great YouTube videos about how to customize them. Let's see here. And they're talking about metronomes on the snarks. Yeah. There's some. I think Matthew says there's no sounds on it. Yeah, it might be just a flashing light, I think. Let's see here. Dwayne's here. Awesome. And Jim says he uses 80/20s. Yeah. That they're very, very, very popular for strings there. Okay, so let's move on to our next section, and this is
3.5.
Yeah.
Because if you play a harmonica, then you have to have this as one of your accessories. You have to have your harmonicas ready, and if you don't have a lead guitar player like Lee there.
That's right. Or your fidget spinners. Let's see. What this section is called the highly recommended section. So the big three, you got to have them. Unless picks. If you're always finger style, then you don't really need them. But other than that you're going to have them. Highly recommended guitar strap. Let's talk about guitar straps a little bit. A lot of acoustic players, because they are not standing, they don't really use a guitar strap. And I usually advise them that it might help a little bit. Because one thing that players do when they're not using a guitar strap is they tend to lean on the guitar a little bit. And an acoustic guitar it needs to vibrate. It needs to have a little bit of life to it. When you use a strap, you tend to sit up a little bit straighter, and the guitar may or may not be resting on your leg, but it's free to vibrate a little bit more. You get a little bit fuller sound, a little bit richer sound to that. Plus, you're saving your back too from hours of hunching over a guitar. So, let's talk about straps. What do you look for in a strap, Scooter? And what kind of price range do you usually go for straps?
Wow. Again, you can get them for $5 a nylon strap, and you can spend $80 or more for a strap. Again, comfort and the width of the strap, not a thin strap that wears you out. I happen to use a Levy. I've had 2 Levy straps for probably longer than most of the viewers have been alive, and they've been wonderful. They haven't worn out. They've done the job. And to add to what Lee said, I agree 100% about wearing a strap, and he gave me some new reasons. Your back, and that's an important thing. I wasn't thinking about my back, but I think a strap, once you find a comfortable spot for you to play, a strap will always put that guitar in that perfect sweet spot. So when your hand is in its certain place on the guitar is in relatively in the same place your hand was when you set it up to feel the right place to be playing. And that's important, because little things you do, little attacks you do, have to be done before they become muscle memory. If you're in the same place every time, it makes it that much easier to get back and do that same thing every time, not thinking about it.
Yeah. And you talked about the thinner nylon straps versus like a leather or wide, even a padded leather wide strap. Really, really, 100% different. You know, they're you'd think, oh, a strap is a strap, and no, no, it's not. The levies. I have a levy that's probably 20 years old. That's, you know, cracking, the leather's cracking and all. I didn't take care of anything like that, and I love it. I don't care what it looks like. It is wonderful. You could play all day. It almost feels like you're not holding the guitar. You know, the wider the strap, the more it pushes on your shoulder instead of digs into your shoulder. Which these things, when you're at home and practicing, don't sound like a big deal because you can just set the guitar down for a few minutes and pick it back up. But when you are there, how long is an average gig for you, Scott?
Certainly a short average gig is 3 hours.
3 hours. And if you're playing a nightclub type gig till 1 a.m, it's a lot more than that. And even if you're sitting down, it's important. So spend the money on a decent strap. I guess that's the bottom line to this. Try a wider strap. Try one some people like just the thin leather straps, a wide thin leather. I've seen a lot of those, the wide thin. I have a wide thin leather, like a tooled leather, strap that I use for my Les Paul, which really sets that off nice, because Les Pauls are usually a little bit heavy. Mine's not super heavy, but it makes it, very, very fun to play. And when you're having fun and you feel good playing guitar, it shows in your playing as well. So that's straps there. Let's talk. We talked a little bit, I think, about this one of these weeks that we did this, or maybe it was just you and I talking. Your guitar case, or a hard case, or a gig bag. What's the difference between two? I get that asked a lot. Should I get a hard case for this, or should I get a gig bag? What's the reasons that you would want either one? And Scooter, what do you use as well?
Unless I'm flying, I use only a gig bag. I have so many of them, but they're mostly Levy. I have Levy gig bags as well, and I have some other brands. And I will go right out, even if the guitar was purchased with a hard case. I go right out and I get a soft case for it. And there are people. It's up to you. If you're the type of person, like when Travis was young, we go to a gig. I had a regular gig bag, and he had a hard case. And he'll leave his guitar in the trunk at 127 degrees. And then when he loads in, he would grab it and throw it onto the stage, and not anymore, but I mean, he used to do that. Well, if that's the way you are, I would suggest a hard case. But if you take care of your guitar and treat it with a lot of respect and bring it in, don't leave it in the hot car in the weather. I personally go with a soft case. It's just a lot lighter and it goes over your shoulder. You're in and you're out.
Personally, I have hard cases for most of my guitars. And in the past 5 years, the only times I've used them is when I've moved from one house to the next house, when they actually went in a truck. I would only use a gig bag for that. I don't use them to store my guitars at home either. So if I have a guitar, right,
very bad,
right, they get acoustic guitars get shown. They're out. And this was another thing. I was thinking about putting humidifiers in this list, and I decided not to. A humidifier, if you're having an active problem, you're in a very dry area or something like that, super important. And I know a lot of players, when I went to college, they're classical players, so they all used a humidifier. And I guess they stored their guitars in the case. And I guess if it's in the case all the time, I could see. But I would not recommend that. I would recommend keeping your guitars out. And we'll talk about stands and all those things.
Here's the best case for your guitar is this when it's at home. You put them in these, and they'll live where you live in the humidity, and it'll be fine.
let's do that. Let's move. I'm going to call an audible here. Let's go to stands. Okay, let's go to guitar stands since we're talking about that. So we have what they call is an A-frame stand. I think they call those there. They're very light, portable, and put the guitar. You see them on stages a lot, but they're awesome at home too. I use. Let's see here. I use this Fender. I really like this Fender portable acoustic stand because here it is all out like that. Same thing as Scott's, but I can put this in the pocket in my gig bag.
Keep going.
Yes, and so the bigger, more sturdy ones. I didn't play acoustic enough to really invest in the bigger, sturdy ones, but I got one of these small Fender ones, and I have a link to that on the recommended page. And they're very light. You can put them in your gig bag without too much weight being put on your guitar, and you're good to go with those. Floor stands. Let's see here. What do you got? You got something?
I went to look for another stand, but I have one that folds up like yours, but flat, and it fits the little thing on the outside of your gig bag. That's very convenient too. It's an A-frame.
Yeah. If you're not going to put guitars up on the wall, I recommend those. You can put them in the corner, get them away from everything. I use the old standard string swing for all of my wall-mounted guitars. I don't have so many of them. I got rid of a lot of guitars that I'd have some sort of a rack, or you see those there. But these are cheap. I think they were, I can't remember how much, $12 or something like that. And you can get a deal if you buy a whole bunch of them in bulk. And let's see here. The other thing, and this is something that's not too common, that I use a lot, is this here. This is called an axe handler. And I'm going to turn it to the side and you'll start to see what it is. Okay, so basically, if you, let's see where here it is. There. So this little lip right here goes on the edge of a tabletop. And so you can, for those of you who like to lean your guitars on your amplifier or lean it on on a desk or something like that. Let me see if I can get this. So you'd put it right here on the edge of a tabletop and it puts a guitar holder right there. So if you have it, especially if you have carpet or something like that, and you don't want to have a stand leaning right, you can put this on the edge of your amp. Bam, you've got a guitar stand right there. I use it actually over in the corner. I've got my Strat that I use with this all the time. But who makes these? I got those from, actually got these from you.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's been too long.
I'll put a link to them in Reamp Products or something like that. I'll put a link to it later on after the show.
I think they make some things that attach to your amp that hold the microphone to mic your amp. And stuff.
Yeah, those are cool too. I started using the Sennheisers where you can just, where they're side address. So, but I've seen those kind of things too. It kind of has a mic stand that comes out from the bottom and you can position it each time. That's pretty neat. Okay, so we went into stands there. But the other thing for highly recommended is capos. Okay, now go get it, Scoot. I want to see. I've seen this before. Let's see what he's got. There's a couple different kinds of capos that you could use. Typically, when people start playing guitar, they buy a capo, and it's usually the rubber band type capo that knocks your guitar completely out of tune. It's hard to deal with, and the beginners aren't really sure how to use them. There's much better capos than that. Do you have any capos, Scooter?
I have so many capos. Capos to me are probably the most important thing, and people don't realize. They get frustrated with capos, because exactly what Lee said in the beginning. They put them on and their guitar is out of tune. And what they don't realize is that when you play guitar without a capo, even let's talk with no capo, when you depress the string, people tend to push as hard as they can to the fretboard. I don't know if anyone's heard of scalloped necks where you don't push there. All you have to do is push the string hard enough, even if it doesn't go to the fretboard, to make it touch the fret in front of your finger. So people will push and they wonder why their fingers hurt and all this because they're excited about playing and they're attacking the guitar and they're pushing and they're working a lot harder than they have to. And that work, while you're playing, you don't notice it, but it's putting your guitar out of tune. It's causing it to go sharp. And all capos will do that if they're not good capos or adjustable capos that will only put enough tension on the strings, not to go to the fretboard, but to make the string touch the fret that's in front of it.
That's it. That's all it needs. Right.
Here are just a few of my capos. And I can tell you without a doubt, because I've experimented with so many. I watched James Taylor online explaining how to tune your guitar for capos. It's very, very interesting. James believes, and I know he's right because I've done it, the lower the string, like your top string, your E string, because it's such a low frequency, if you tune it a hair flat, the human ear won't hear that when you're chording. And it's different on the higher strings. You tune it flat, you're going to hear it. But on the very low frequencies, the human ear doesn't pick it up. So if you'll tune your top string like a click or two flat, the A string, the fifth string, a little bit flat, and the rest of them tune them dead on. Your capo close to the fret as you can manage. And there are lots of capos. This one particular one here, it fits a classical and a regular guitar. And the top, you can see there's a radius, and on the bottom, there's no radius. So you can use it upside down or right side up. And there's all kinds. Kaiser's very good. It's popular, but Kaisers are very strong, and they'll push your strings, and there's no adjustment. So they tend to go sharp. And the best capo, I used to use a Victor, which had an adjustment on the bottom. This Dunlap or this G7 has an adjustment on the bottom. And you want to make sure to have a radius, if you're playing a radius neck, to have a radius top bar. And if you're playing on a classical, it's not so radius. It's very straight. But this is my favorite capo. This is a Diodario NS, and it has a little dial here where you can adjust the spring and make it harder or tighter or looser. And that will let you adjust it to make your capo perform as it should.
Yeah. So that's the big problem with capos when people first start using them is they keep trying to retune their guitar. And so they'll put the capo on and the capo will knock everything out of tune because it's pushing down so hard it's knocking the strings out that they'll leave the capo on and go back and try and adjust the tuning to make that in tune. And then when you take it off, of course, you're completely out of tune again. And, stuff like these, the roller ones, these springs are like so tight on there. Every time I use this, it goes out of tune. Here's the Kaiser ones that Scott was talking about. That's just, it's basically one has one tension. And if you put a capo on the third fret, you have a certain tension at the third fret. It will be completely different than if you put the capo at the seventh fret. So if you have one of these that only has, it has basically one setting, it clamps down this hard, and it might work really well at the third fret, but then when you start moving it around in different places, it's going to be completely different, and you'll be out of tune all over the place. I think this is a Shub. I like the Shubs.
Very popular.
Yeah, and basically what happens is it's just a very easy adjustment here. It just it only allows the underneath the neck to move as far as this point will allow it to go, and you can adjust it. This one is a flat radius, but I have a lot of different ones, and those are the only I only ever use a capo that has an adjustment to them. You're asking for trouble if you're playing 4 people with a capo that only has one tension to it. Yeah.
There's also one capo I'll give you my warning about, and it's just my opinion. Again, capos can be expensive, and 19, 20. Sometimes there are G7s that are a little higher, up to $30. I've paid as much as $40 to try a capo. There's a capo that's out there that's been advertising for the last few years called Thalia. Mm-hmm. And it has a bunch of different things, different radiuses, and they have abalone on top, and they have different exotic woods. And I don't know many guitar players that want to spend $70 to $100 for a capo that I lose all the time or that someone steals at a gig. And I even contacted Thalia and I said, look, do you have any regular plain ones that don't have any diamonds or any sapphires on the capo where I could afford one as a struggling musician? Or are these capos simply only for millionaires? They never answered me. So I refused to buy their capos. But if you just have some extra money laying around, $100, 70, 80, $100, yeah, buy the Thalia and get really confused.
There's some neat ones too. They not from that company, but there's ones where you can actually just capo individual strings, which is really neat. The possibilities start to go all over the place when you do that.
And if you have old capos, I do that as well. I'll take a hacksaw and I'll cut the ends off, and you can make different kind of capos that way.
Okay, so there's capos. We are right on time. This is working out perfect. So now we're out of the kind of functional things, and we're going to get into the very useful. Not run out and get this now, but these are things you're going to need over time at some point. Metronome. Metronome is something that I'm a champion of. My playing got a million times better when I decided to start practicing with a metronome. My timing when I was away from the metronome went through the, rock solid. After that, it's really something that you would, the cell phone. You can get a metronome app for free on there. Doesn't cost you anything, and get started figuring out where your playing sits. I'm not the type of person who thinks playing to a click is a good thing at all. I played in a church band for a few months, and everything they did was to a click through inner ear monitors, and it was the most unfun thing to do. It was just no fun at all. But practicing with the metronome is wonderful. You will know where your time sits. And then when you do play in a group setting without the metronome, you'll be able to make intelligent choices about, playing in front of the beat or behind the beat, matching other players. It's just a wonderful thing to have. And I highly suggest everyone try a metronome if you haven't, at least. So we have the phone app. We have digital metronomes. I really like I like to go to garage sales and pick these up. These are the pyramid, the old-timey pyramid ones. They break. They're not accurate, 100% accurate, but they sound really nice. It's a fun way to practice. They have, let's see here. They have new ones, plastic ones you can get. This is real cheap. I think this is like $19 or something like that. A lot of good good ways to get a metronome. The digital ones are gonna. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I use like a tennis shoe in the dryer. It works. So well.
Or your windshield wipers. That always works. Nice thing. Just get out in the lawn. Turn the car on. Turn the windshield wipers on. Okay, so metronomes. We talked about stands already. Okay, so here's just a couple things. I'm just going to throw these out. We'll just talk about them. A footrest. When you play acoustic guitar, do you use a footrest at all?
I don't. Classical, generally, if you take classical lessons, there's a certain position and a way to hold the guitar and everything. I started out very young. My first lesson was classical, and you needed a stool, and I didn't have a classical guitar. And every time my thumb would come up over the keyboard, over the neck of the guitar, the instructor would whack me with a pencil, and that lesson lasted about 30 minutes, and it was done.
Yeah.
And, I got rid of the stool and anything that was in that class.
Yeah, but the reason you'd use the stool is to bring the guitar up a little bit. So if it's resting on your leg, bring the guitar up so it's in a little bit better playing position, which if you'd use a guitar strap, that kind of does the same thing. But for classical, they don't use guitar straps. That's a whole different thing. So footrest, let's see here. Sound hole covers. People always ask about these sound hole covers. Do I need one of these? And that's a depends kind of thing. I always have one for just in case. It's an emergency tool only. So sometimes, depending on the sound of the stage, the monitors, or if you're playing on stage and you have a lot of low end, a lot of subs there, it can create a frequency that resonates the wood on your guitar and creates that feedback, that low frequency hum. And so this takes care of that. It doesn't allow those frequencies to get inside of the guitar. And some people with like 335s, they'll with the F holes on the sides, they'll do the same thing. They'll cut foam out and make, for a 335 that feeds back at high volumes too. They'll try and cover those sound holes up. How often do you find yourself using one of these?
I'm fortunate. I've over the years I've used LR bags and K&K pickups and different pickups that I've had feedback problems with. And then when I switched to Fishman, I haven't used a sound hole ever since. And that's my guitar.
Right.
Like bigger body guitar in my circumstance might find it necessary, but for my guitars, I don't have a feedback problem at all.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the big answer to that question is just in an emergency. Just if you're having a problem with that low frequency feedback, to have one available, but you don't need these unless it's a problem. Tools. So this is something that Scott and I have. We both enjoy the Stu Mac and the tool. Right, string winders. For these little cheap things. The little cheap string winders that you'll see, and they usually look like they're in a gumball machine at the guitar store. There's about 400 of them in there. To me, the most important thing about it is the pin puller section of it right there. If you've got pins that have bridge pins that have a hard time coming out, it gives you a nice way to not mess your guitar up and get them out. But I use them. I use the cheap ones all the time. Scott just held up a cordless screwdriver with an attachment on the end that, you got to be careful with those. You let them go too long and pow, strings pop. So you got to know what you're doing with the tools.
One of my go-tos, I know it's probably not yours, Lee, but I always like to have this on hand. This is a new product. It's basically super glue, but it's an improved super glue, and I use that on my nails. It's a very thick super glue, and it doesn't dry right away. You can move it around and get it where you need it. Even on a guitar, I use it in guitar repair,
Mm-hmm.
and then take your time, use it, and then spray it with an activator, and then it hardens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very good stuff.
Yeah, if you find when strumming, I find on my index finger on my strumming hand that it wears the nail down over time. So if you're a strummer, like we both are, I know Scott always has his nails fortified. Mine gets very thin on this side. It actually gets kind of painful, in real life, not just when I'm playing guitar. So I'll do that too. I'll put a little bit of glue there just while I'm playing to make sure that it doesn't wear it down.
If you take a nail file and let's say you have a bone saddle or nut, a spare one, and you'll file and get the dust, and you can mix it in with super glue, and then kind of with a toothpick, put it on your fingernail there, let it dry, and that bone dust really makes it hard like a nail, and then you file it and get it just right. Like you won't even notice that your nail's broken or thin or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Allen wrenches, always important. Most acoustic, like I play the Larrivee, Scott plays the Larrivees, and they usually have a proprietary Allen wrench to, it's a curved one to really get to set your truss rod with. String clippers, wire cutters, and what else did I have? Oh, slides. That's the very last thing we're going to talk about today is slides. Do you play much? I don't think you play I haven't seen you play a whole lot of slides.
I do. If I do, I use a large Bic lighter.
Right. I use a Budweiser bottle that usually they have a lot of them at these fine establishments that we've been playing. Here's the slide that I use for acoustic. It's a Dunlop. It's called a mud slide. I heard about it first from Keb Mo. He used mud slide, and it's a ceramic slide. It's not too heavy. Like this is one of those, what is that? Something heart slides where you have different radiuses depending for different guitars along the slide. I love the way a ceramic slide sounds on acoustic guitar. It's very warm. There's also, the steel slides that you see. This one's actually for a dobro. It's got a rounded tip on it, so you could do single notes and also straight across. And then the brass slide, which is a little bit more mellower sound right there. So if you're interested in, like a very sharp type sound, go for the steel slides. A little bit mellower, go for the brass. And if you want a nice balanced sound, the ceramic. Although these break very easily. Drop it one time and $20. You're back at it again. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap this up? We're coming right to the hour right now.
I would. The last week we've been practicing a little bit, Rhonda and Gary Porter, and I told them we were just talking in between songs, and we haven't played in so long. It was wonderful to get together, and I mentioned your name in the podcast, and Gary got up and played. You were traveling somewhere on the road, I think in Minnesota. I don't know where. It was.
I know it's North Carolina. It was at the Double Door in North Carolina.
Man, he played me some stuff that you were just, man, it was religious, and you were phenomenal, and you are phenomenal. But it was a lot of magic in that evening.
Oh, thank you. I remember that day. Gary brings it up. I lived in Nashville at the time. Well, in Laverne, which is right outside of Nashville at the time, and the gig was in North Carolina. And I had to get there, and I had a few hours to get through the mountains. and with trucks cutting me off and all that stuff. And I was exhausted when I got there, and it's one of those times. It was a good gig. It was a good gig. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to when we can all start playing out, and so all the people from the academy and people here can hear a little bit of playing too. I haven't done a whole lot of playing since the teaching thing's been going on, but hopefully soon. Hopefully everything starts to look up for us. Okay. Well, thank you, Scooter. Is there anywhere you'd like to direct people to, or any videos you have out or anything?
Just Scott Pallet on YouTube. There's some attempts I've made to get through all this craziness, and on Facebook. And if you happen to be in the St. Simon area or Jekyll Island this coming weekend, Rhonda, Gary, and I will be doing it live at the islands.
Awesome. All right. Okay, well, we'll call it That's a Wrap. Thanks for joining me today for the Play Guitar Podcast. Make sure to hit the button below to subscribe to the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell so you can get all of my content as soon as it comes out. Are you ready to fill in all the cracks in your playing and use my roadmap to get your playing moving forward again? If so, I'm ready to help. Head on over to Play Guitar Academy. Thanks again, and we will see you on the next episode. And thanks everybody in the chat for hanging out with us today. This was a longer one, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every minute of it. And thanks to Scooter, I enjoy every minute of getting to spend some time with you, even though we're not close in distance right now. That's right. We get once a month, we get together and have some fun. So thank you, Scott. I sure appreciate it. And I'm going to say thanks to everyone, Matthew and Coke and Jim, David, Dwayne was here. I didn't see Dwayne. How you doing, Dwayne? Awesome, man. Let's see. Evan was here. Mark and Dean. Good to see you, Dean and Jim. And if I forgot anybody else, I apologize, but we will see you soon. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.